My name is Rebecca Cates. I'm the Urban Agriculture Extension Educator with Purdue Extension in Lake County, and I am a co-host. And then our awesome guest speaker today is Kevin Allison, who is the Urban Soil Health Specialist for Marion County Soil and Water. But he does so much like at the state level with urban soil and awesome conservation issues like cover cropping, mulching, and organic amendments, and creates a lot of great programming and resources. So we thank him for taking his time to walk us through this newer tool that I think many growers could use, not even just urban growers, but other growers too, getting into different cover crop systems. Um, we also have Mariana Rodriguez Soto on with us. And Mariana, I don't know if you wanted to do a quick introduction of who you are, and then Mariana's going to talk more with us later too.
Thank you, Becca. Like she mentioned, my name is Marian Rodriguez Soto. I am one of the urban soil health specialists with the Urban Soil Health Program, and I cover the northwest area of the state of Indiana. And so what we do is our mission is to educate and advocate to improve soil health on Indiana's urban and diversified small-scale farms and gardens. So we help support local partners and also provide direct technical assistance to growers on different conservation practices. And I want to share our website in the group chat so that you can learn more about us. And also we create resources as well. So I want to share also our resources page with people. And so thank you for joining us today. And without further ado, I will kick things over with Kevin Allison, who will share about cover crop. Talk to you later.
And thank you, Mariana.
Okay. So this webinar, I'm not going to like go into like probably super detail on like managing cover crops. There's tons of ways to manage cover crops. You're gonna get like a glimpse of it. And of course there's gonna be other presentations that deal with that. But in general, what we're going to be focusing on here is how to use our new cover crop tool. And then I think next week, we'll be doing one on the mulching tool as well. So thank you to the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service for help supporting our work. Thank you to our partnership and Urban Soil Health, Purdue Extension, Lake County SWCD for spreading the word and helping me put this together. Okay, so this is the tool. It is if you're not familiar with like a spreadsheet tool, it may take a little bit of getting used to. I will say that we are very likely and excited to be getting a SARE grant starting in October that will enable us to keep doing education around these tools. So excited about that. And we found that like kind of working in small groups, like in person, is pretty cool to learn these and really like kind of help farmers make plans. So if you're a farmer out there, like keep in touch with me. Like I'd be happy to come. We can get a few people together and like really go through this and do specified planning for your own farm. So this is kind of the tool. There's a bunch of tabs on the bottom. And this is just kind of like just basic information. But I will let you know that there's a cover crop table. So that table that we were looking at, it's in here. There's the creative mix, which you can actually use to create your mixes. There's a cost and totals tab, which is gonna you can actually put in the cost of cover crops per pound. And then you can get out how much a mix might cost per area. And it also gives you like total amounts of seed that you might need to buy. The seeding windows tab is that seeding windows calendar that I showed you, and then a secondary species, which are kind of like extra species, some of which we don't recommend, just like as an FYI, and then some that might be an interesting cover crop, like that might be, but not common, that might be interesting to put into a mix, for example. So with that, I'm going to go to the table just to show you where this is. But yeah, you can click on the cover crop table tab. And it's basically that same table that I showed you. So from here, you could print this off and have it as a reference as you move through your planning process. So again, yeah, just termination methods. It's got some really good considerations about seeding rates just in general, and then the seeding, the seeding rates themselves. So from there, we go to the create a mix tab, and this is kind of like the powerhouse of the sheet, because it's the one that lets us like actually do the mix. So you can put in your name, location, year if you would like, and then what it is it's 3 mixes that you have available to make. So here's mix number 1, and down below that, if you scroll down, that's mix number 2, and then mix number 3. If you need more than that, you might just need to like redo it, but like or yeah, like maybe save another copy or just like do one, write it down, and then do another one. But yeah, in general, 3 mixes is what we've got. So I'll also accept feedback in the future if you think that, hey, there should be room for 5. Like I'm all about that information. So where do we start? Area of bed. So let's say we've got 150 square foot bed. So go ahead and put that in. And of course, you can get that by, multiplying your width times the length of your bed. If you've got like a 2.5 feet wide bed times 50 feet, just multiply those together and you can get your area. So for example, a farmer might have a 150 square foot bed, and let's say they've actually got 10 of them that they're wanting to do to this certain this specific cover crop mix. So now it tells you that you've got your area of 1,500 square feet total. So now you kind of know how many square feet total. Up here at the top, it does start to take in like the total of all mixes. So at the end of this exercise, you'll be able to know like how much square foot of cover crop you might be cover cropping. And maybe an aside for like us, like the conservation planners in the agencies, if like you're using this for an environmental quality incentives program contract or program, like a federal program for conservation, this is a valid tool to use for that. And for example, if the payments are by 0.1 acres, this will automatically round up and tell you that it's you're closest to like 0.1 acres for to help with your contract work. For you growers, like if you're interested in conservation programs, like definitely reach out to Urban Soil Health or myself or your local agency in RCS, and I'm sure they'd be able to help you out. So now we've got the area in. So now let's start thinking about next crop. So I'm going to plant onions and beets after this mix. Those are early crops. So I'm actually looking for a cover crop that's going to winter kill. And I'm going to plant this in the fall, and I'm going to use it, choose one that winter kills. So I would actually go back to that table and find and look at all the species. And I would realize that oats and field peas are 2 common ones that winter kill. So I'm going to choose that cover crop species. So it's a drop down menu here. And I'm going to go down to oats. And then I'm going to go down to peas and field peas. And it's going to automatically populate what type that is. So now I've got a grass and legume cover crop mix. Now it's time to choose the rate. So for the oats, I've got a decision to make, right? Like do I want really, really thick oats? Am I covering so much area that I really need to be like cognizant of cost? And that then I might just say like normal, because or do I have like a small space and cost isn't really a big factor, and I just want a lot of mulch out of this. Like I want as thick of oats as possible, so I'm going to hit high. So now this high rate of oats will tell me that I need 4.7 ounces per 100 square feet for that area, and I actually need 7 ounces for one bed and 4 pounds and 6.5 ounces for all the beds. So what it basically does is it calculates up how much of that seed do you need for that area. So if I were to change this to 300 square feet beds, like you're going to see the amount per bed, the ounces needed per bed, like raised. So the area is pretty important. So now let's look at the field peas. I'm going to put that as low. So this is a very low rate of field peas. So I would expect like a whole lot of oats and just a little bit of field peas. So now I've got my mix, right? It's 1.1 ounces per 100 square feet. Now I know that I need about 7 ounces by weight of that of the oats per this bed, and 1.7 ounces of field peas for the bed. And I've got my mix, and it's almost as easy as that. I mean, yeah, it's gonna take some familiarizing with it. And of course, like our teams are here to help you, like kind of walk through these mixes and stuff. But after a year of doing cover crops, I think this will even start to become more helpful. So you can kind of plan by yourself. So the planting method, this is just kind of for documentation. There's a guide on our website that's called plant seeding methods. So it talks about the different kinds of seeding methods, about how to broadcast cover crops, whether or not to incorporate them, how to direct seed them with row seeders. So let's just say I'm going to sprinkle this out onto the bed. I'm going to weigh out the 7 ounces, sprinkle it out, and then incorporate it with a rake, for example, or a tilther, for example. And then, yeah, so that's just kind of a documentation of how I might plant it. And then the termination method, you've got options. For my records, I just know that it's going to winter kill. So these 2 species are a winter killed cover crop. So now I've got what I need, right? I've got like how many ounces I need. I could go weigh it out, and yeah, do my planting. So that's a mix. I'm going to go down to another mix here. And let's say we've got like 300 square foot beds and we've got 5 of them. Okay. So there's, now we've got another 1,500 square feet of cover crops. Let's say like, I like to do like cereal rye, for like high biomass mixes. Like I love doing it like before like sweet potatoes. I like crimp it down and then tarp it for 4 weeks in the spring, like pull the tarp off and then transplant like sweet potato slips, or even, tomatoes, into the dead mulch. So my purpose for this mix is growing like a super thick stand of cereal rye. So I'm going to go down to here, the cover crop species. I'm going to roll down to rye, winter cereal, and it's going to auto-populate that it's a grass. And I'm going to push high. Okay, so I've done that. I've got a high mix. And now it's telling me that I need about 4 ounces per 100 square feet, 12 ounces per bed, and about 3 pounds or almost 4 pounds to cover that whole area with cereal rye. So that's perfectly great cover crop strategy, and it tells you how much seed you would need for that. So let's say you were to wanted a legume in that mixture with the cereal rye, then let's go ahead and do that. Let's pick crimson clover. So we've thrown in crimson clover with the winter cereal rye. Now we've got more diversity in the mix. So I want actually a lot of crimson clover too. Like I want this thing like super thick. So I'm actually going to put it at high as well. So now you can see we've got like crimson clover and cereal rye. Now this high rate of cereal rye, like it really might suppress the crimson clover. So maybe we could pull this back down to normal to really let that legume kind of have a way out of, just space and sunlight. So to ensure growth. So that might be a good mix. Let's say we wanted to add another legume to it. So hairy vetch is a common one. This is very common, like winter high biomass mix, cereal rye, crimson clover, and hairy vetch. So now I've got 2 legumes, and I'm going to set both of these legumes at high. Okay. So what I want you to take note of is that now that these 2 legumes are high, like crimson clover is already at a double rate, like twice the amount it needed. Really, hairy vetch is now at a double rate. So we're looking at like 400 times the amount of seed that you need out here on to actually get like a full stand. So that's a lot of seed. That's like more expense than you probably need. It's not going to really hurt anything because you've just got, like it's gonna fill up the bed. Like some might get crowded, like some cover crops might get crowded out, etc. But one tool that you can use with this to kind of help you out there is I want my legumes to be at a high rate. Like I want them to shine in the spring. So since I have 2 legumes, I can actually set this divisor to the number of legumes in the mix. So I've set both of these legumes to a divisor of 2. And so that's what that divisor actually means. Like if you've got, 10 legumes in a mix, and you might want a high rate of legumes, set them all to high, and then put in the divisor as the amount of legumes in the mix. I know that's kind of I don't know if that's abstract or not, but like, yeah, it's just kind of a way to kind of limit yourself from not just putting way too much seed out there. Um, so yeah, this is a mix that's ready to go as well. So we're gonna plant this. I actually might like broadcast the small seed out there. So like crimson clover is something that could be broadcast pretty easily. And then I might put the cereal rye in like the cedar, like a row cedar, like an earthway cedar, and actually like drive over the bed, like push it over the bed to get that seed down to a depth where it's got a better chance of germinating. So in the spring, I'm going to crimp this cover crop and then I'm going to tarp it. So that's just kind of a helpful way to kind of just plan and keep track. So for a planner, or if I'm working with a grower, like I could easily send them this and be like, hey, yeah, you're gonna be crimping and tarping, and then maybe make a note like, crimp 1 month before crop planting and tarp for 4 weeks. So you can kind of start to develop a plan. Okay, so before maybe if we've got some time at the end, might make a couple more mixes, but I wanted to show you the other tabs as well. So, well, before going there, I'm sure you're glaring at this PLS. Like, what is that? PLS. So when we buy cover crop seeds, in general, there's going to be like a seed tag on it. It should have a seed tag on it, and it's going to say like, and if you need to know this information before, you could like call call the supplier. But in general, it's they're going to have seed tags, and it's going to have pure live seed on it, or purity and germination. It's going to have some of those words on it. So basically, what that means is that if you've got like a pound of cover crops, like not all the cover crops in that bag are going to germinate. Like if the pure live seed is at 70, like we could only expect 70% of those seeds to actually germinate. So the lab or the supplier like does those tests, and so we know what that germination is. So let's say we expect to get like a normal rate of cereal rye, and so we put the 6 ounces out, or however many ounces it says. But at the end of the day, like only 70% is going to germinate. So this PLS, this pure live seed, allows us to incorporate that information. So for example, if the pure live seed on the seed tags come back and it's like 80%, you can see that it actually increased the amount per bed. So it's just going to take into that consideration that only 70% is going to germinate, and it's going to say, okay, 30%, we're going to add 30% more seed to this calculation to like incorporate that fact. So if you had like crimson clover and it was like a 90% germination rate, you can see that it's just going to raise it just by a little bit. So it's not going to change like the mix like a whole lot. But it might be considerable, especially if you're doing like a large area. If you're up to like a half acre or even 20,000 square feet. Well, I guess that's almost the same thing. If you're up to a big area, then it might be helpful to really dial in like more exactitude to your rates. Okay, I'm going to roll over to cost and totals. So from that other sheet, this pulls in cost and totals, it pulls in the total pounds needed in all those mixes. So you can see that like 0.47 pounds of crimson clover was needed to get like all those mixes in place, right? 4.4 pounds of oats for all the mixes in Create a Mix. So if I were to go on, and I don't pre-populate these because there's so many differences in cost around sources and etc. But if you were to find that you have like, okay, $1.25 a pound for crimson clover, let's say it's 75 cents a pound, $1.75. Let's say this was 50 cents a pound. So as you put in like the cost per pound, it's going to start telling you a little bit more information, right? So now you know that the cost per area is actually like 59 cents. Because or you're actually using like $3, like through all those mixes, you're actually using like $3.30 of oats. And this is like the total pounds that you would need for all these, for all the mixes. So where can you go buy a half pound of crimson clover? let's say that you're having a hard, and we can talk a little bit about sourcing in a bit if we got time. But if you need a half pound and online it says like the minimum pounds to that you can buy is like 2 pounds or 5 pounds, you can actually put in like the pounds to obtain as like five. And then it's going to tell you about like what your total cost of seed for like purchasing that year is. So like, for example, like oats, I know I need 5 pounds. I'm going to go ahead and get a 10-pound bag to save some for next year. I need a pound of peas. I'm going to get a like 5-pound bag, for example. Cereal rye, like I need 2.3 pounds. Like they only have a 5-pound bag. So now I can kind of see like when I'm buying in bulk, I will know like about how much it might cost to buy like all the seed for the year, or even like the next couple of years if you're shooting high on your pounds to attain. So this is basically just a way to get at like, okay, how much it might cost per each cover crop and how much quantity I might need. If you go back to the create a mix after this, after putting in your cost information um, on that tab, like now you can see here at like for mix one, it's going to give you a cost estimate per bed, and it's going to give you a cost per total area. So yeah, once you put that pounds per or cost per pound in the cost and totals tab, then you'll be able to realize like in real time like how much this may cost. So if I were to up my beds to like 20 beds, 20 beds of 150 square feet, it's going to start raising the cost. Yeah, should at least. So yeah. And if you see like these are all new, right? So if you ever catch like any like yeah, anything that may not look right, like of course, like please contact me. I'm just looking at these cost totals and just I'll probably be double checking these soon to make sure all the calcs are right. So that's just a way you can get at cost as well. Okay, yeah. Yeah, never mind. I think we're right because cost per bed didn't change because I didn't actually change the area of each bed, right? So if the actual bed was bigger, then the cost is bigger. Okay, we're square. Um, okay, so cost and totals, and then of course the seating windows is here in this tab. So just a quicker way to get at this. Again, it's all on our website underneath the cover crop section, plus many more resources, but I wanted to have this within the tool so it's kind of easier to get at. And then secondary species, I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but it's basically a list of species that could be added to a cover crop mix, but as NRCS or like SWCD, we usually just recommend like a small amount, like don't use this as your full mix, but just kind of use this as like a piece of your mix if you're wanting to add something different and unique. But yeah, like faba beans and even like chard and different kinds of clovers. And then we don't recommend here in the state to use like sweet clovers and mustards or ryegrass, perennial ryegrass, except in like certain circumstances, just because they can get a little aggressive. And yeah, and so as long as you're like managing them with like intent and making sure they're not going to seed and things like that, then could be okay. But just make sure you check over just kind of good guidelines for yeah, for recommendations. Okay. So I'm gonna ask to see if there's any questions, and I'm gonna go ahead and say also like super apologies for the PowerPoint not like being smooth. I don't know why. If you got any tech heads out there, all ears. But yeah, is there any questions?
Yes, there are questions in the chat. Sorry about that.
Cool.
Could you make Becca a co-host as well? Sorry, she had to go real quick. But... Right. So
Yep.
Kevin,
I can
Kevin,
help
are you
moderate
there? Sorry.
questions. Yeah, I can unmute now.
All right.
All right, cool. I'll let you do that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So we had a couple people just ask for you to reiterate the divisor tool. You could just kind of go over that again.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. So the divisor tool is basically like if I've got three species of the same kind of like And you could use it in different ways, but if you've got three species of like a legume, for example, it might be easiest to say like, okay, crimson clover, field peas is a legume, and hairy vetch. Okay, so I've got three legumes. Okay, let's say I want them all, I want the legumes to be a high rate. Okay, so like I want the legumes to be like to fill up this bed like almost like double, like twice the amount of legumes I would actually need to have full coverage. But if I put high on all these, so like my legume, I want the rate high. If I put them on high, that's actually like that's a double rate. That's a double rate for crimson clover, and that's a double rate for hairy vetch. So I've got like 600 like times, or like or six times the amount that I actually need, because it just keeps like that's just a double rate, like yeah, six times the rate of seeds. So I can actually take this divisor now that I've got three legumes. I can put that at three, I can put that at three, and I can put that at three. And all it does is divide by this number. It takes your rate and divides by that number. Um, so now my legume component is set to high. Um, and since I've got three species in the mix, three legumes in the mix, I'm putting a three there. So it's just dividing them each by three. So the grand total of the legume is actually still a high rate of legumes. I know that's a little tricky. We experiment with lots of different ways of doing the math on this, but it seemed like this is kind of what we landed on. Um, I hope that helps.
And that would be different than if you just made the rate normal for each of them.
Um, so if you did normal, then you would be at 100%, 200%, 300%. So you're at 300%, right? So just kind of think of it like that. So it's a little bit different. Like if you did low, without any divisors, low plus low, you're at 50% plus 50% plus 50%. So you're at like 150% rate. Whereas, yeah, so there's little differences. Just kind of think of yeah, just remember like the half, like a normal is 100% rate. So
Cool. And could you go over resources on figuring out like what cover crops do which things? Like, are there some that add nitrogen? Are there some that add calcium?
yeah, yeah. So in general, like cover crops, like in general, like they don't like necessarily add like a nutrient to the yeah. Let me back up. Okay, legumes for nitrogen. Like legumes are in general like provide nitrogen. So in the PowerPoint that I was going to show you, I was going to like kind of go through that and pick up on those concepts. But in general, legumes like nitrogen. So for example, like this one here, like there's no real big grass in this mix. Like the oats are going to die during the wintertime, but I'm going to get all these like this nitrogen fixing legumes to grow into spring. Like I would use this in front of like or before a crop that's going to need a lot of nitrogen. So I would use this before sweet corn. I'd use it for brassicas and kale, um, just to grow like nitrogen for that purpose. Um, Other than nitrogen, though, like I think in general, like of cover crops is not necessarily adding a particular nutrient, but otherwise just like increasing microbiology, weed suppression, like the roots are penetrating for like soil health. I'd recommend looking at SARE Managing Cover Crops Profitably book. It's also on our website, a link to it. And it's got like tables that talk about, which cover crop does like which magic trick, right? Like the radishes are great at breaking up compaction. So there's definitely like tables from managing cover crop profitably that are super helpful in kind of figuring that out. But in general, I kind of just like to think the more diversity of cover crops I can get out there, the better. If I need nitrogen, I'm planting legumes. And then I also like do a lot of choosing the cover crop mix based on how to terminate it. So yeah, like they're like the winter killed species are being used before like early crops. And I'm trying to put legumes in beds that I'm not planting until let's say May, because I've got time to let them grow into spring. I've got time to like mow them down or cut them down and tarp them or mulch up to kill them. So it kind of gives me more time. So I kind of use a mix of those things to make those decisions.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can you talk about where to buy the small amounts of seeds?
Yeah. So on our website, like underneath the cover crop section, there's at the very bottom, there's a cover crop list of cover crop seed providers. It's a PDF. The links don't actually or aren't actually like links in there, but you just might have to copy and paste that text. But it's got like 5 or 6 like online providers. Some of them are getting better at I can't really recommend like one specific place, but some of them are getting better at like offering lower quantities. The only issue usually is that shipping kills, like, so if you can get with other groups or organizations or gardeners and kind of bulk buy, that's very helpful. But then also, like in Indianapolis, for example, the public libraries have public library branches. Make sure you call ahead, but they're offering like little like seed packages to try. But if you've got like over 1,000 square feet, like a fairly decent sized garden, like I'd probably recommend trying to get your own supply, because they're only giving out small packages at the libraries. Urban soil health events like Marian's like events, and some of our workshops in the fall, like we'll have cover crop seeds available, like little packages. But in general, I'd point you towards that cover crop seed supplier or seed providers list. Unfortunately, like I don't have like a lot of like in-store places, like brick and mortar places, like garden stores. It's kind of hit and miss. Just like I would, if you ever find like a great cover crop supply at a garden center, like please let me know. I do know that I mean, for example, like New Ross Grain, northwest of Indianapolis, there's the one on the southeast side of Indy, there's one, and then drawing a blank. But then like out in the farm world, out in the rural Indiana, like there's like co-ops here and there that might be able to break down that sell like 50-pound bags to big farmers. Sometimes they can break down bags, but sometimes they can't, like into smaller quantities. The only way to know that is to call. And maybe like if we keep calling and asking, like the demand will show and like people like, industry will start providing more options for like smaller quantities of seed. But in general, like I usually go to those online stores, and yeah, just get my seed supply for a couple years, just to save on shipping.
Yeah, and along those lines, if you do buy in bulk for a couple of years, will the germination rate decrease over time, or are there ways to reduce that?
Um, yeah, gosh, like type in Purdue Extension seed storage, like our extension seed storage in Google, and kind of like think through, cool, dark places. I think Johnny's Seeds has like maybe I'll throw this on my webpage as a link. But if you type in like Johnny's Seeds and look through their website, it's a seed company, but they have a great resource on like which seed might last how long in terms of vegetables and cover crops. So, it might say that like, radish or buckwheat might last, a season or two, and hairy vetch might last 3 or 4 seasons. So that is a really good like indicator. Otherwise, like do a germ test. Like, usually in like spring, I might do a germ test. So just like put 10 seeds in a little bag above your fridge with a damp paper towel and just see how many actually germinate. So you can kind of get a feel for if that seed's still good.
Thank you.
One thing I might add to, like sometimes we get seed, like the legumes, like does need inoculated. So like it's this like powder that you would put on it. You can buy separately from the cover crop seed suppliers, or garden stores. Kind of like you would like beans, right? Like bush beans, for example, or pole beans. And some of the cover crops come with a coating. So if you were to like use that cover crop seed that's like already pre-inoculated, I'm not sure how long that inoculation is actually going to be fresh. Like the science is kind of crazy on that. Like it's hard to say. Like sometimes those bacteria aren't going to last 2 years, for example. I try to put that kind of inoculated seed in the refrigerator after I'm using it. And then if I'm using it again, I might consider like getting some powder and like re-inoculating it.
Thank you. Does the normal cover crop rate meet the NRCS specs for EQIP grants or cost shares?
Yeah, so these normal rates were actually taken from NRCS rates. So NRCS normal rate for a species is actually the 100% rate for NRCS. So yes, it's right in line with it. Yes. Yep. This tool is actually on like the Indiana Natural Resource Conservation Service Field Office Technical Guide. So it's I guess the official planning tool for small farms and cover crops in Indiana. And hopefully some other states can pick it up too.
Great. And with the PLS column,
Yep.
is that coming from the seed people or personal decision?
It's coming from the seed people. Yeah, that's a tag. It's actually on the seed tag, right? So like, yeah, I think the PowerPoint had like a picture of a seed tag. I'm really sorry. But it's basically, yeah, you'll see on the tag it says, it'll say like pure live seed, um, at a certain percentage, and towards the bottom here of this sheet, it kind of talks about that, like pure live seed is the percent of viable seed that is capable of developing new seedlings, and then it gives like the calculation. So that's, yeah, it says find on seed tag or inquire with seed provider. So that'd be provided to you. Like if I were to like buy seed without knowing that, and I didn't want to run out, like it might be smart to just go ahead and put them at like 80, right? Like 80% just to like make sure you get more enough seed, or just, buy an extra few pounds just so you know you can have enough. Because when you get these seed, you might say, okay, it's low enough that I actually want to consider it and put it into my mix or into this calculator. And then you can revisit the calculator and put the yeah, put the PLS back in.
Great. And we have one more minute. Is there, so this question asks if we're doing cover crops for the first time, what do we need to do to the current soil, the raised beds? Is there anything special that people need to do?
Um, yeah, clear out weeds, like weeds be gone. Like, so I would get rid of all the weeds that you can, whether it be by pulling them out, hoeing them out, tarping them out, like however you do your weed control, but get a fresh slate. Because cover crops are awesome at weed suppression, but they're not going to outcompete existing weeds. If there's thistle, like that's a whole other thing, like definitely follow up with us, but like in general, get your annual weeds out. And then if you can get this, like I like to put like a light layer of compost on the bed just to kind of protect seems like soil seems to be more bare this time of year after a season, your mulch is breaking down. So I might even add like a little bit of compost on top, not necessary. But then like I'll broadcast the seed out on a raised bed or like a small area. I actually might just use a rake to kind of like fluff in that seed into the soil just a little bit, like a half inch. Just to kind of get some seed to soil contact, and that will help them germinate better. If you can do it before a rain, like 100% do that, because they do need water. And if you can catch a good rain or two, you're going to be like way on your way. And
Great.
the seeding document on our website might be helpful. It's like, yeah, cover crop seeding methods kind of walks you through that.
Great. There were a couple questions that didn't get answered, but it is at the hour, so we could follow up with those later. And I did see we were planning to share the slides, or the slides will be shared. We could also share the chat and the resources. Any final comments that Kevin or Marian want to share?
I just want to thank everybody for coming. Yeah, apologies for the PowerPoint thing. Like, I think I'm going to do this again soon and like try that again. And yeah, see what happens. But yeah, just appreciate everybody coming. If you got any questions, reach out to us.
Thank you all so much. See you for the next one.